The sun was just beginning to set when I pulled into the driveway of my new house. The paint on the shutters still looked fresh, and the lawn was a manageable shade of overgrown. I had finally found a home that wasn't tangled in the spiderweb of a homeowners association, no bizarre lawn restrictions, no monthly fees, just a quiet HOA-free life. Or so I thought. 3 days later, I met her, the woman known only as Karen by the rest of the street. Blonde bob, sunglasses on even at dusk, holding a clipboard like it was a weapon. She approached my mailbox like it had personally offended her. Then she spotted me and smiled with all the warmth of a parking ticket. "You must be new," she chirped, tone syrupy and sharp at once. I was halfway through introducing myself when she cut me off with a hand wave. "You're not allowed to park on the street overnight here," she said, eyes narrowing. Confused, I explained that my property wasn't part of the HOA. That's when the smile vanished and the real Karen appeared. "That's not how this works," she snapped. "Everyone here follows the rules." She walked away before I could say anything else, already scribbling something on her clipboard. That night, I did some digging just to be sure. My realtor had assured me repeatedly that this house was outside of the HOA boundaries. Even found the original property map in my welcome packet.
Our lot was clearly marked.
Not subject to HOA. The next morning, there was a note taped to my front door. It was typed in bold, all caps. "As a member of the Oak Ridge HOA, you are hereby notified that your trash bins must be stored out of sight." I laughed at first, assuming it was a mistake. But at the bottom was a signature, Karen H. Oak, Ridge HOA president. The war had begun. It started small, its passive-aggressive notes. A friendly reminder that grass over 3 inches violated HOA standards. One day, I came home to find a violation sticker on my garage door. Unauthorized structure paint color. I hadn't painted a thing. Karen was trying to enforce rules that didn't apply to me, and she was doing it aggressively. I finally decided to confront her face to face. I walked over with a copy of my deed and a copy of the Oak Ridge HOA boundary map. She barely glanced at them before scoffing. "We've expanded the HOA boundaries recently," she said smugly. "It'll all be formalized soon." I asked for documentation. She didn't have any, just attitude. I politely asked her to stop harassing me. She smirked and said, "We'll see what the board decides." There was no board. The HOA. Had 3 people, and Karen was the only one who seemed to do anything. I went back to my house, feeling both annoyed and uneasy. Something told me this wouldn't be the end, and I was absolutely right. Weeks passed. The notes kept coming. Neighbor quietly warned me that Karen had done similar things to others, trying to rope in new homeowners under false pretenses. But those homeowners had given in to avoid conflict. I was not going to fold. Not to her. Not to someone trying to bully me into submission with fake rules. Then came the knock at the door. A process server stood there, envelope in hand. "Been served," he said. My stomach dropped as I opened the papers. It wasn't a joke. Karen had actually filed a lawsuit claiming I was legally required to join the Oak Ridge HOA. My jaw hit the floor. This just got real. I didn't panic. Not yet. I called a real estate attorney that same day. After reviewing the documents, he burst out laughing. "This is nonsense," he said. "You're not in the HOA. This will get tossed in seconds." That was reassuring, but part of me was still unsettled. What if the judge didn't see it that way? What if Karen had found a loophole? The court date was set for 3 weeks out. In the meantime, Karen was telling anyone who would listen that I was an enemy of the community. She printed flyers. She posted in the neighborhood Facebook group. She even told the mail carrier that I was refusing to cooperate with neighborhood standards. I hadn't even met half these people. I kept my head down and prepared for court. My attorney prepped our documents: deed, HOA, boundary map, property tax records, everything clearly proving I was outside of Karen's little kingdom. Meanwhile, she kept doubling down. She started citing fake bylaws. She even threatened to fine me for sidewalk leaf debris. It was August. The morning of the hearing, I showed up in a button-down shirt and jeans. Karen arrived in a power suit too, sizes too tight, carrying 3 overstuffed folders. Her smug grin radiated confidence until the judge called the case. The courtroom was nearly empty, save for a sleepy bailiff and a curious man in the back. Probably bored. Karen began by introducing herself as the president of the Oak Ridge HOA. She spoke with the dramatics of a soap opera villain. Your Honor, this homeowner is refusing to abide by our rules and threatening the integrity of our community. She waved her papers like she was unveiling evidence of treason. I just sat and watched. The judge raised an eyebrow and said, "Do you have legal documentation showing he's part of your HOA?" Karen hesitated. "Well, not officially, but," she began. The judge cut her off, "So, no." She tried again, claiming that the spirit of the community included my property. I could see the judge stifling a laugh. He turned to me and asked if I had anything to present. I handed over my binder with the documents. He flipped through them quickly, then nodded. "This property is not part of the Oak Ridge HOA," he said firmly. "Case dismissed." Karen stood there stunned. Then she opened her mouth. "Big mistake. I object," she screamed. "He's lying. This whole neighborhood is supposed to be united." The judge blinked slowly. "Ma'am, this is civil court. You don't get to object like that. And if you interrupt again, I'll hold you in contempt." That only made her angrier. She slammed her hand on the desk. "This is a travesty." The bailiff took a step forward, just in case. Karen turned to glare at me. "You think this is over?" she snapped. "You think you can just ignore the will of the people?" The judge had had enough. He looked to the bailiff and said, "Take her into custody. Contempt of court." The room went dead silent as the handcuffs clicked. It had been 3 minutes. Karen was still shouting. She was led out of the courtroom. "I'll sue him again. I'll sue the county." "This isn't over." But the judge just shook his head and moved on to the next case. I sat there in stunned silence, unsure if I had just dreamed the whole thing. It was over that fast, and she was actually being booked outside the courtroom. My lawyer was grinning. "That's got to be a record," he said. 3 minutes, tops. And she did half the work for us. I asked what would happen next. Said she'd likely be released after a few hours, maybe fined. But the case. Dead. Buried. She's got no leg to stand on. She might even owe you fees. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, I got a letter from the court. Karen had been ordered to pay my legal costs, a few $1,000s. I didn't even have to ask. The judge had done it on his own. As for Karen, I didn't see her for a while. Her house went quiet. No flyers. No angry notes. It was like she vanished. Then, late one night, I saw a moving truck. No goodbye notes, no angry rants, just boxes and silence. By the next morning, she was gone. Word around the neighborhood was that she'd taken a break from community leadership. I called it what it was, exile, self-imposed or not. The HOA Karen had finally lost, and just like that, the street felt peaceful again. I learned something important through all of this. HOAs aren't inherently bad. Some help maintain property values and keep neighborhoods clean. But they only work when the rules are clear and the leaders aren't drunk on power. Karen had made it her mission to control people who weren't. Even under her jurisdiction, it turns out you can't just decide someone is in your HOA because you want them to be. Laws don't work that way. Property lines exist for a reason. Deeds matter. And when someone tries to bully you into submission with fake authority, you don't have to take it. You can fight back and win. If I had rolled over and just joined, none of this would have come to light. Karen would still be out there expanding her fake empire. Instead, I stood my ground, not just for me, but for every neighbor who didn't want to deal with her drama. Sometimes the right thing isn't the easy thing, but it's worth it. The next neighborhood meeting was awkward, to say the least. A few people apologized for staying quiet. Others thanked me for standing up to her. The new HOA president, quiet guy named Dave who just wanted to fix the potholes. No clipboards, no threats, just common sense and decency. What the HOA should have been all along, and me. I finally got to enjoy the peace and quiet I'd moved here for. I thought it was over. I thought the courtroom showdown with Karen was the final chapter in this neighborhood saga. Her moving truck had rolled out quietly, her house left dark and empty. Weeks passed with no more fake notices, no more passive-aggressive flyers. I let my guard down, and that's when the next Karen appeared. This one came in the form of a woman named Barbara, mid-50s. Blunt bob haircut and a glare that could sour milk. She wasn't part of the HOA, but she was a self-declared zoning watchdog. I met her when I was repainting my mailbox one Saturday morning. "The color's not regulation," she said, arms crossed. "Regulation?" I asked, already wary. "Mailbox colors must conform to municipal standards," she replied. Smugly. I had checked the city's code already. There was no such rule. When I pointed that out, she raised an eyebrow. "I've read more than just the public site," she said ominously. "You'll hear from me soon."
Ow.
I brushed it off as another nosy neighbor looking for a fight, but Barbara wasn't just nosy, she was organized. She started taking photos of my house from the sidewalk, zooming in on things like my trash bins and garden hose. Then came the emails, formal-looking complaints citing obscure municipal codes. One claimed my shed was too close to the property line by 6 inches. Another insisted that my porch light contributed to light pollution. She even reported my solar panels to the city. That one confused me the most. This has got to be a joke, I told myself. But it wasn't. Barbara was serious. Worse, she had time. I contacted the city zoning department just to be safe. The woman on the phone sighed when I gave my address. "You're on Oak Ridge Drive, right?" she asked. I said yes. "Yeah. We've had a lot of filings from someone on that block lately. Same name every time." Barbara had apparently reported 8 properties. I asked if I was in violation of anything. She laughed softly. "Nope. Everything looks good on our end. Just be patient. We're required to investigate every claim, even the absurd ones." I thanked her, but the call left me irritated. Barbara couldn't win legally, but she could still waste my time. She was doing it deliberately. The city inspector showed up a week later. Nice guy. Professional. Polite. Apologetic. He glanced at my shed and took a few photos. "You're fine," he said. "Everything's within regulation. Honestly, I wish we could charge for nuisance filings, but that's above my pay grade." He handed me a paper and left. I thought that would be enough to shut Barbara down. But she escalated. She started mailing anonymous complaint letters to other neighbors, trying to stir up drama. One accused a family of running an illegal dog kennel. They had 2 dogs. Another claimed a couple was operating an unlicensed Airbnb. They just had in-laws visiting. The community was getting sick of it. A few of us met up one evening at a neighbor's backyard cookout to talk. Everyone had a Barbara story. She had become a one-woman HOA, except without any authority. Just a stack of printouts, a camera, and a burning desire to control everyone around her. Someone joked, "First we had HOA Karen, now we've got zoning Karen." The name stuck. But this time, we weren't going to wait until she ended up in court. We wanted to be proactive. Someone suggested talking to a city council member. Another suggested a neighborhood petition. I had a better idea. Exposure. I put together a public post. Nothing mean or defamatory, just facts. A neighbor on our street has been filing constant zoning complaints with the city, many of them against properties that are 100% compliant. I posted screenshots of the inspection reports. I encouraged others to do the same. The post exploded in the local Facebook group. Within hours, over a dozen neighbors shared similar stories. Someone even posted doorbell footage of Barbara measuring their driveway with a tape measure. Another caught her crouching in the bushes, taking photos of their yard. People were stunned and fed up. Barbara responded, "Of course. I'm just trying to maintain standards in our community," she wrote. "If people have nothing to hide, they shouldn't be worried." That only made it worse. One commenter replied, "So you're spying on people for fun?" Another said, "You're not the zoning police, Barbara. Relax." Still, she didn't stop. She doubled down, insisting she was within her rights. But the city was starting to take notice, and not in the way she wanted. I got another call from the zoning office. This time, the tone was different. "She's overwhelming our staff," they said. We flagged her activity for review. Apparently, if someone files excessive and repetitive complaints without merit, they can be labeled a vexatious complainant. That means the city can ignore their reports unless there's clear evidence. "We're building a case," the rep told me, "but we need documentation from those affected." I offered to help. I put together a file of all the reports and inspector notes I had received. I also asked my neighbors to contribute theirs. We compiled everything into a tidy digital folder, complete with timestamps, photos, and correspondence. I delivered it to the city a week later. They were grateful. "This is exactly what we needed," they said. While the city reviewed the material, things on the street were tense. Barbara had no idea her own crusade was about to implode. She was still out every morning with her clipboard, still lurking by mailboxes, still snapping photos from her car. I even caught her taking a picture of my recycling bin. It was trash day then. One Friday afternoon it happened. A city vehicle pulled up in front of her house. 2 officials got out and rang the bell. Barbara opened the door looking smug. That changed quickly. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, but I saw a lot of pointing. She turned red, then pale, then slammed the door in their faces. The next day, she posted a furious rant in the Facebook group. "Apparently I'm being punished for caring about my neighborhood," she wrote. "If people don't like being held accountable, that's their problem." No one took her side, not even the HOA members. One person replied, "You brought this on yourself, zoning Karen." According to the city, Barbara's complaint privileges were officially suspended. Any future reports she filed would require hard evidence and supervisor review. Translation: she was out of power. A reign of red tape was over. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief again. It was the second time someone tried to rule the block with fake authority. First Karen, then Barbara. Different tactics, same playbook. I couldn't believe how many people wanted to turn suburban living into a dictatorship. All for what? Mailbox colors, grass height, shed placement. It was ridiculous. But this time, we had fought back together. The community had grown closer because of it. We even started a neighborhood watch, not to police each other, but to protect against Karens in disguise. People started waving more, talking more. There were fewer anonymous notes and more cookouts. I still kept my documents handy, just in case the next HOA hopeful came knocking. But for now, things were quiet. My lawn was a little messy. My recycling bin was visible. And no one cared. It finally felt like a real neighborhood, not a prison camp, with lawn gnomes and bylaws. Every time I walk past Barbara's house, I notice the clipboard is gone. I realize something important through all this. Power without authority is a dangerous thing. Karen tried to use the HOA. Barbara tried to use the city. Both failed because the system is built to protect rights, not satisfy neighborhood tyrants. But only if you speak up. Only if you stand your ground. I kept thinking about the people who gave in before I moved here. How many quietly paid bogus HOA dues? How many repainted mailboxes just to avoid conflict? How many let people like Karen and Barbara control them through fear? Only stops when someone says enough. That someone can be you. It doesn't take a lawsuit or a city intervention. Sometimes it just takes one person willing to call out the nonsense, to check the facts, to refuse to be intimidated, to say, "Show me the rule." Most bullies fold when you ask for receipts. This street is no longer under siege. The real HOA has chilled out. The city isn't being flooded with fake complaints. We've all learned to appreciate our privacy a little more. Turns out, all it took was a few well-documented truths and a united front. Drama doesn't like sunlight, and me. I finally feel like I belong here. Not because I followed fake rules, but because I helped end them. With Karen gone and Barbara silenced, the neighborhood finally felt normal. For a few glorious months, there were no clipboard crusaders. No fake citations, no one measuring driveways at dawn. People were friendlier, like survivors of a suburban war finally allowed to breathe. But as always, peace in Oak Ridge didn't last long. It started with a folded piece of paper tucked into my mailbox. Urgent community action required. It read in bold, underlined type. Inside was a petition, one proposing the expansion of the Oak Ridge HOA to include adjacent properties for neighborhood unity. My house was listed. Again, I nearly laughed. So last time someone tried to shove me into the HOA, she left in handcuffs. But this wasn't from Karen. The letter was signed by Randy M., a name I vaguely recognized from a prior HOA meeting. He had always seemed quiet, clipboardfree.com. Apparently, that was all an act. The petition wasn't asking politely. It claimed that 9 HOA homes jeopardized neighborhood standards. It cited property value, instability, and visual inconsistencies. It even claimed that several homeowners have expressed discomfort about the presence of unregulated homes. I was clearly a target again. I walked over to Randy's. "How's that evening?" He opened the door with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just trying to bring the community together," he said. I told him I wasn't interested in joining, signing, or being coerced into anything. His smile twitched. "Well, majority rules," he said cryptically. "You might not have a choice." That last line echoed in my head all night. I started researching. Could the HOA actually force me in through a petition? The short answer: no, not without consent or a formal amendment to the HOA charter, including legal filings, unanimous board approval, and in most cases, county-level confirmation. None of that existed here, but Randy was counting on people not knowing the law. His petition was more smoke than fire, but smoke can spread fast. I checked the local Facebook group. He had already posted the petition there with a long-winded explanation about restoring unity. A few people had liked it, okay? Others were suspicious. One neighbor commented, "Didn't we already go through this with Karen?" Another asked, "If this had legal backing?" Randy ignored the questions and kept reposting the same talking points. "We can't let a few hold the rest of us back," he wrote. "A few is me and 5 other homeowners outside the HOA line." The next week, he started going door to door. A neighbor texted me, "Just had Randy on my porch pressuring me to sign some HOA thing. Didn't feel right." Another said he was claiming the city supported it, which was a lie. I could see what was happening. This wasn't just about the HOA. This was about control. I wasn't going to let that happen again. I started documenting everything: the petition copy, the mail drop, screenshots of his posts, and texts from neighbors. I also visited the county clerk's office to double-check the legal status of our properties. Nothing had changed. Number 2. Expansions, no annexations, no filings from the Oak Ridge HOA. My house was still safe. Next. I printed flyers of my own, titled, "Know Your Rights, HOA, Myths versus Facts." I laid out the truth in plain language. HOAs cannot forcibly include non-member properties without signed legal agreements. I dropped them off at houses Randy had visited. I posted the PDF online. I tagged the group admins. The response was immediate. Comments rolled in. "Thanks for clarifying. This feels shady. Why is this guy pretending to be a lawyer?" Randy went silent for a day, then replied with a lengthy rant. He accused me of spreading misinformation to protect anarchist values. Anarchist. It's for owning a normal mailbox. That's when I decided to host a community Q&A night in my backyard. No agenda, no speeches, just neighbors, snacks, and actual information. I invited a local real estate lawyer, the same one who helped me beat Karen, to speak. Over 20 people showed up. Even a couple of current HOA members came out. It turned into a civil, informative, even fun event. The lawyer explained the limits of HOA power, the process of annexation, and homeowners' rights. He answered every question clearly. By the end of the night, it was clear. Randy's petition had no legal legs. A few days later, the petition disappeared from the Facebook group. Someone said Randy was reevaluating his approach. That was code for he lost, but he didn't take the loss gracefully. A week after the Q&A, someone egged my mailbox. Another night, my trash can was mysteriously tipped over 3 times. Small. Stuff petty even, but it was clear Randy wasn't done with me. He wasn't brave enough to confront me directly, but the message was there. I embarrassed him. I chose not to respond. That only feeds people like Randy instead. I doubled down on staying involved, attending every HOA meeting I could. Ironically, being outside the HOA didn't mean I couldn't show up to open meetings. And I made sure I sat in the front row, binder in hand, smile on face. Randy refused to look at me. Others, though, came over to thank me. Few admitted they'd almost signed the petition without reading it. It scared them. That's the thing about these neighborhood enforcers. They rely on apathy, on fear, on confusion. They think if they speak with confidence, people will fall in line. But all it takes is one well-informed neighbor to derail their power trip. I had become that neighbor, and I wasn't going anywhere, Randy. Eventually stepped down from his advisory role on the HOA board. Quietly, no announcement, just gone. Just like that, the third suburban tyrant was out of moves. People started joking that I was the Karen exterminator. Not exactly the title I wanted, but hey, I'd earned it. I wasn't looking for drama when I moved here. I just wanted a peaceful place to live without fake rules and wannabe dictators. But every time someone tried to play suburban emperor, I had to stand up. It wasn't just about me anymore. I had neighbors coming to me with questions, asking if things they were told were real. I didn't have all the answers, but I helped them find out. I printed guides. I kept a folder of city contacts. I even helped someone appeal a bogus HOA. Landscaping fine, and they won. Eventually, the neighborhood began to shift. The HOA started focusing on actual maintenance issues, fixing broken signs, repairing sidewalks, trimming neglected trees. The drama dwindled. The threats stopped. People started showing up to meetings not to fight, but to contribute. It was almost functional. I started to enjoy my home again. I sat on my porch with coffee in the mornings and didn't worry about someone filming my recycling bin. I could leave my garden hose out overnight without fear of anonymous retaliation. The silence wasn't tense anymore. It was calm. But in the back of my mind, I knew where there's one Karen, another always follows. Just when things seemed stable, the peace cracked again. Not with a bang, but with a whisper. One of my neighbors, Jenny, stopped by late. One evening, with a strange look on her face, she leaned in like she was about to tell me government secrets. "Have you heard about the watch committee?" she asked. I blinked. The what now? Apparently, a small group of residents had been meeting privately under the name Oak Ridge Community Watch Committee. It wasn't official. On the HOA agenda, it wasn't even announced. Jenny found out after one of them accidentally CC'd her on an email thread. "They're watching certain houses," she whispered. "Yours is on the list." I honestly thought she was joking. Watching? For what? Trash cans? Rogue mailboxes again? But she wasn't laughing. "They say they're collecting footage for compliance. Some of them have security cams pointed at public areas. Driveways. Sidewalks. One guy has a drone." That got my attention fast. Jenny had screenshots of the emails. The committee called itself proactive, claimed to be filling in the gaps left by an underfunded HOA. It'd been recording timestamps, taking notes, and compiling what they called residential irregularities. It sounded less like neighborhood watch and more like amateur spy work. The kicker? None of this had HOA approval. No votes, no oversight, just a few residents. The usual suspects playing neighborhood detective. And if Jenny hadn't stumbled on the email, we might never have known. The watch committee wasn't watching. For the neighborhood, it was watching the neighborhood. I dug deeper. Some of the committee names were familiar. People who used to praise Karen at meetings. Others who had signed Randy's petition. The same control freak energy, just repackaged in secrecy. But this time, it wasn't fake fines or legal threats. This was surveillance, and that crossed the line. I checked my own property and noticed something I had missed. Across the street, a neighbor had installed a new security camera angled not just at his driveway, but right across to mine. I hadn't thought much of it until now, so with what Jenny told me, it no longer felt like coincidence. It felt intentional. I asked around. Several neighbors had noticed new cameras popping up, all facing outward. One caught footage of a teenager cutting across a lawn and sent the clip in an email thread titled "Possible Trespasser." Another thread marked a photo of someone parking a little over the curb. Irregular vehicle use. It was creepy, obsessive. Legal, probably. Ethical, definitely not. I reached out to the HOA president, Dave, the chill guy who had replaced Karen. He was as disturbed as I was. "We never approved anything like this," he said. "And if they're acting as a committee under the HOA name, that's misrepresentation." He agreed to bring it up at the next public meeting. And that's when the real fire started. The meeting was packed. Word had spread fast about the surveillance group, and nobody was happy. Dave stood up first, clearly, trying to stay calm. It's come to our attention that a private group is operating under the name Oak Ridge Watch Committee, he began. Let me be very clear. This is not an HOA-sanctioned effort. A few people clapped. Others looked confused. But the members of the watch committee sat together in the back, arms crossed, glaring like they'd just been outed on national television. One of them, a man named Peter, stood and said, "We're just keeping the neighborhood safe." What's the problem with that? The problem, as Dave explained, was that they weren't just watching. They were documenting, filing, sharing. You're compiling surveillance data on your neighbors without their consent, Dave said. That's not community safety. That's targeted harassment. Peter rolled his eyes. If people followed the rules, there'd be nothing to document. Oh. The room erupted. One woman shouted, "You filmed my kids playing basketball in my driveway." Another said, "You took pictures of my car and sent them to the group. Why?" The committee tried to defend itself, but the damage was done. People weren't mad because they had something to hide. They were mad because they'd been spied on. I stood up and asked the only question that mattered. Did you think no one would find out? After the meeting, the fallout began. The HOA sent out an official email disavowing the watch committee. They clarified that no private surveillance efforts would ever be approved, and that residents had the right to report suspicious or invasive behavior, including camera misuse. It was a full-on neighborhood scandal. Peter and the others tried to play the victim. "We were just helping. You're blowing this out of proportion." But the trust was gone. One member of the group quietly took down her front-facing camera. The next morning, another stopped attending meetings entirely. The so-called watch committee was dead in the water. Jenny and I decided to submit a formal report to the city's privacy ombudsman. Yes, that's a real position. We detailed the emails, the footage collection, and the meeting fallout. There were no laws broken. The official response included a recommendation. Residents should avoid community surveillance efforts without legal or HOA sanction. Translation: Stop spying. You're not the neighborhood FBI. The watch committee. Never recovered. Dave proposed a new policy requiring any neighborhood-wide initiatives to go through a formal HOA vote. It passed unanimously. No more secret clubs. No more rogue operations. If someone wanted to help, they had to do it above board. And with everyone watching, and the cameras, many stayed up, but they faced inward again, where they belonged. As always, the drama brought unintended benefits. People were suddenly talking. We formed a real neighborhood chat group, not to report each other, but to coordinate events, share resources, and check in. We hosted a block party. We created a babysitter list. One guy even offered free lawnmower sharpening. For the first time, people weren't looking over their fences with suspicion. They were waving, saying hi, offering each other tools. It was the kind of community everyone claims they want, and ironically, it only happened because we faced down 3 separate attempts at forced control. Karen had tried to sue me. Barbara had tried to regulate me. Randy had tried to trap me. And now the watch committee had tried to spy on me. None of them had succeeded. Not because I was some kind of hero, but because I refused to ignore it. I didn't stay silent. I spoke up. And eventually others did too. That's the biggest lesson I've learned. Fear wins in silence, but it shatters when exposed to daylight. The next HOA meeting had record attendance and 0 arguments. Dave shared upcoming repairs. People asked questions. One guy suggested installing solar-powered pathway lights on the main road. Everyone loved the idea. No shouting, no accusations, just progress. It felt like a totally different neighborhood. Afterward, a few neighbors pulled me aside. They joked about making me neighborhood president. I laughed it off. The last thing I wanted was a title. "You've already got more fans than the HOA, one guy said. I shrugged, just like my trash can where I can see it. We all laughed. That night, I sat outside on my porch again. Same view, same cool breeze, same house. But it felt different now. It wasn't just a house outside an HOA. It was a symbol, weirdly enough, of what happens when people stand up to nonsense. My mailbox, my grass, my unregulated porch light, little acts of rebellion. And you know what? Not a single Karen in sight. It started like most stories on Oak Ridge Drive. Quiet at first, then weird, then full-blown chaos. The house 2 doors down had been sold after months of sitting vacant. We all held our breath. Would it be a normal neighbor? A peaceful retiree?
Hey!
A family that minded their own business? It's not exactly. She arrived on a Saturday morning in a pink SUV that looked like it had never touched a gravel road. Blonde ponytail, Bluetooth headset in one ear, barking orders. At the movers like she was directing a military op. That goes inside, not the porch, she snapped. Then she noticed me watching from across the street. I waved. She stared for a second, then gave a polite but cold smile. Hi there, you're on the welcome committee, right? She said. Laughed. Nope, just a neighbor. She frowned. Oh, I assumed someone would have greeted me. That's normally how communities work. It's just like that I met Karen Jr. Her real name was Crystal, but within days the nickname spread like wildfire. She had Karen's tone, Barbara's precision, Case, and Randy's obsession with rules, despite having lived here less than a week. Her first move? Creating a neighborhood group chat and declaring herself the temporary admin until a vote could be held. Just helping build structure, she said in her first message. Within hours, she posted a proposed neighborhood code of conduct, which included gems like, all dogs must be walked only between 6 to 9 a.m. and 6 to 9 p.m. No yard work on Sundays, and no decorative flags except for U.S. national holidays. Nobody asked for this. The reactions were swift and hilarious. One neighbor posted a gif of Gandalf yelling, "You have no power here." Another asked, "Did the HOA hire you?" Someone else posted a screenshot of her Facebook profile. Under her bio it read, "Future HOA President." That's when we all knew she wasn't just ambitious. She was coming for it. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. I sent a friendly private message. Hey, love the enthusiasm, just so you know. We've had a few issues in the past with power-hungry neighbors. Might want to slow roll it a bit, she replied. Thanks for the warning. I'm here to fix that culture, not repeat it. Fix it. It wasn't broken, at least not anymore. Since Karen, Barbara, Randy, and the watch committee were neutralized, Oak Ridge had been relatively drama-free. But Crystal wasn't interested in peace. She wanted power. And she was determined to carve out a space for herself, even if it meant fabricating problems. A week later, Crystal hosted a community cleanup, which sounded nice until she showed up with a clipboard and a rating system. 5 points for every trash item picked up. -3 points for any house with visible clutter. It was less cleanup and more public shaming. She even ranked lawns. Mine was a 6. I hadn't asked to be ranked. After the cleanup, she posted a leaderboard with house numbers instead of names. I was near the bottom, right above someone with a rusted garden gnome. One neighbor, exhausted by the nonsense, replied, "Are we being graded now?" "Is this school?" Crystal clapped back. "Just a little friendly accountability." That's when I realized something critical. Crystal wasn't just trying to resurrect the HOA's control. She wanted to gamify it. Turn neighborly interactions into contests. Turn lawns into performance metrics. Turn people into players in her private HOA fantasy. And honestly, that was more dangerous than the original Karen, because Crystal wasn't loud like Karen. She was calculated. She smiled when she made rules. She apologized when people called her out, and then posted new rules anyway. She weaponized community spirit to get what she wanted. And worse, a few people were starting to go along with it. I knew I had to act before this turned into a full-blown regime. This time, there wasn't a fake lawsuit or hidden surveillance to expose. Crystal wasn't breaking laws. She was playing the long game. If I was going to stop her, I had to beat her at her own game and expose the power play behind the sunshine. So I waited, watched, gathered receipts. My chance came when Crystal started pushing for what she called the Oak Ridge standards. Agreement. She pitched it as voluntary at first. Just a way to build shared expectations, she said. The agreement had 23 bullet points ranging from yard regulations to noise guidelines. And at the bottom, signature line. It wasn't legally binding, of course, but that wasn't the point. She was hoping people would sign out of politeness. Then she'd post the number of compliant homes and start isolating the ones who hadn't. Why aren't you participating? Don't you care about our community? It was Karen 2.0 rebranded with smiles. I printed the agreement and took it to a real estate attorney for review. He raised an eyebrow. It's toothless. But she's setting the stage for something more aggressive, he said. This is exactly how small HOAs get turned into monster HOAs, death by voluntary policy. I asked what to do. He smiled. I'll organize her, so I did. I launched a counter-campaign. Oak Ridge, live and let live. Same format, same cheerful tone. But instead of regulations, it celebrated differences. Every lawn has a story. Every house has character. And that's what makes this neighborhood real. It struck a nerve. People loved it. And best of all, no signature required. Crystal was furious. She posted a long-winded response claiming, I was undermining neighborhood unity. I didn't respond directly, but I posted a poll. Should Oak Ridge have a social committee or a policy committee? Social won, 93%. Only 2 votes for policy. Crystal was one of them. The other was probably her dog. The next blow came from an unexpected ally, the HOA. President Dave. He posted an open letter thanking everyone for supporting the live and let live approach. He gently reminded residents that no one had authority to create enforceable rules outside of the HOA bylaws. Community doesn't come from control, he wrote. It comes from trust. Crystal tried to pivot. I'm just trying to help. Why is everyone so resistant to improvement? But the damage was done. Her petition stalled. Her rankings stopped. Her group chat messages became less frequent, more defensive. And one by one, the few supporters she had drifted away, tired of the drama. Eventually, she left the chat. No announcement, just gone. Her pink SUV still parked out front, but no more flyers, no more clipboards, no more moral high ground. Oak Ridge had weathered another storm, not with confrontation, but with coordination, humor, and just enough public shaming to make it stick. Karen Jr. had been defeated, and peace returned. Again, at this point I stopped being surprised. Oak Ridge had a gravitational pull for control freaks, apparently. First the original Karen, then Barbara, then Randy, then the watch committee. Now Crystal. 8. But each time we responded better, faster, stronger. We weren't just surviving. We were learning. People had stopped asking who's in charge, and started asking, how can we help? The neighborhood wasn't perfect. It never would be, but it felt authentic. Messy gardens, weird flags, loud kids, quiet porches. That's what I wanted when I bought this house. Not HOA rulebooks or sidewalk SCOREBOARDS. And for the first time, I felt like the community didn't need me to fight anymore. Other people were stepping up not to regulate but to protect. Jenny created a community calendar. Miguel started a lawn tool share. The neighborhood dog walkers built a map of pet-friendly paths. The group chat became ... fun. We still joked about the past. Remember the camera guy? Remember the trash point system? But we laugh now because we won, because we chose to live free, because we proved that suburbia doesn't need a queen, a board, or a spy drone to thrive. It just needs people willing to say, no thank you, like my weird mailbox, just the way it is.